Happy spooky season, spooky gang. All my spooky brothers and sisters, we are finally here, finally made it to our beautiful spooky season. We all know that starts September 1st, so definitely got to go ahead and get everything kicked off. Now, I know what y'all thinking. This is y'all first time ever seeing me outside of my natural habitat. So yeah, this is tech purely in the wild. And shoot, we already ready. You know what I'm saying? We got that big double M on, and we about to go to Spirit Halloween and picking up a bunch of this Halloween decor and all this good stuff. So I say all that to say, y'all comment down below when y'all actually start preparing for spooky season and setting up Halloween decor and, you know, getting the house looking nice and right and all that good stuff. Y'all let me know when y'all do that. And also comment down below, what are some of your favorite Halloween stores? You know, like I said, personally, I love Spirit Halloween, but I don't know if there are more out there or anything like that come around seasonally. So y'all comment that down below. And also on top of that, I want to hear about all of your, you know, just Halloween traditions as a whole. Like, I just want to hear all about that good stuff from y'all. So yeah, y'all comment that down below. But yeah, spooky gang, we about to get on this road. Yeah, I'm about to start driving out to Spirit Halloween. So I'll catch y'all after this.
Don't mind. I like the way you walk. I can't help but follow you around with my gaze. You have a certain bounce in your step that's just so enticing. Mind if I follow you around for a bit longer?
What's going on, spooky gang? Welcome back to Terror of Tech. It is your boy Tech, and we are back with another one of them bangers. I hope y'all having a blessed day. I'm just dumb happy that we are finally in the spooky season and can really start getting things popping with setting up Halloween decor in the crib. Always watching like horror movies basically every single day, which is going to be something that I'm gonna get into, you know, in a later video, especially as we move closer to October, talking about the 31 days of horror and watching a horror movie every single day for the month of October. But we just hit in September, so we'll get to that eventually for sure. But so like the title of the video says, we're talking about where a horror franchise should have ended. I've done a part 1 of this video like well back when I dang near first started the channel, so it was probably like one of my first maybe 7 videos or so. But so yeah, y'all definitely check that out right here. So yeah, basically with this segment, we're talking about, you know, when a horror franchise should have ended. So, you know, you look at each of the sequels and then you see like, where was that breaking point where they, you know, like quote unquote jumped the shark, and where, you know, the franchise ends up being something that you don't even recognize in comparison to, you know, what they introduced to you from the very first movie, and then so on and so forth. So that's what we're looking at. And before we start listing some of these horror franchises, y'all go ahead and subscribe to the kid. We're on the road to 1K subs. We are a little over 700 subs. I appreciate all the love and the support the channel is getting so far. It means the world to me. The sub count has really been ramping up ever since we've been getting closer to spooky season. So I highly doubt that that's just a coincidence. So y'all go ahead and subscribe, like the video. And so with that being said, let's go ahead and kick this list off. So the very first franchise that I want to start with is a franchise that's near and dear to me. And no, it's not Halloween. It is Child's Play. So the Child's Play franchise, I love the majority of the movies in the Child's Play franchise. When they introduced Chucky, or Charles Lee Ragus, in 1988, they did a great job. It was something different from your traditional, you know, haunted doll or anything like that type of movie. You know, they really gave, you know, Chucky, a doll, a real personality, and you know, he really came to life, you know, more than just, you know, from a literal sense, but from the sense of his personality, all the wisecracks and stuff like that. So in the first movie, all of that was great because it still had a pretty serious tone, but then you also still get some of that, you know, some of the fun from Chucky himself. But then you move into Child's Play 2, which is also a banger. Child's Play 2, you have, you know, Andy, you know, being away from his mom, and then he gets introduced to Kyle, which is sort of like this big sister type figure to him, and they essentially have to battle against Chucky and foster care system and all of that good stuff. So that one really, from an emotional aspect, it's pretty dope. just seeing how their relationship and all that good stuff goes together. So all that's good. I think Child's Play 2 is a really fun movie, and so 1 and 2 back to back, bangers. 3. Now, I personally like 3. And I know that's not overly popular. Andy being in this military school, and of course Chucky's still going after him because he thinks the first person that he told his secret to, he needs to kill them for him to get out of the body. In this movie, that's where they introduce, because Chucky's in a new doll body, in his mind he figures out that, oh well, now that I'm in a new body, I can just tell my secret to this new kid, Tyler, and everything gonna be cool. Well, clearly it's not cool. So I think a lot of people have a problem with mainly like the setting, and then and although some of the wisecracks that he says is a little wild.
Ollie Ollie oxen free. Get out here, you little son of a bitch.
I still feel like the animatronics and everything for Chucky was probably at its best at this point. Like, in a lot of cases, it seems like he's really mouthing the word. So, in my opinion, 1 through 3, you still strong. Bride of Chucky comes around. And although me personally, once again, I love Bride of Chucky, Bride of Chucky is probably our shark jumper, because that was probably the biggest movie that was a departure from everything that we knew about the first movie, the first 3 movies, especially the first one. But like I said, I still enjoy Bride of Chucky, but then you introduce the whole meta aspect in a lot of cases where they're already aware of the fact that they're killer dolls, and they're aware of different horror icons, whether they exist within that exact universe or just they're talking about horror as a whole. That's those are that's a whole different thing. But still, I mean, you have to think, this is 1998 when this movie comes out. That's 2 years after Scream. So it makes complete sense of why they started to go this route, just because that was the popular thing to do. But yeah, this definitely would have to be where the franchise should have ended. Although I like Bride, but you got to think what comes after Bride and everything that it spawned. So Bride of Chucky, unfortunately, you are where the horror franchise should have ended. Now moving on to the next franchise, we're going to be talking about the Insidious franchise. The Insidious franchise is another franchise that I do love. Upon making this video and taking notes and things of that nature, you really start to realize that, a lot of these franchises really don't have that many good movies in them. You just love a certain few so much that you hold certain franchises in higher regard. But overall, there's a lot of franchises out here that shouldn't have had more than about 2-3 movies tops, honestly. So this is one of those cases. Unfortunately, I absolutely love the original Insidious. It's in my top 10 horror movies of all time. Then they come back with chapter 2. They make chapter 2 a little more interesting. They add a little bit more lore, and they added a lot of creative ways to explain some things that happened in the original. So it's like, okay, boom, we got 2 banger movies. Then Insidious 3 comes out, and I definitely wasn't a fan. I saw it in theaters. I saw it on iTunes when I purchased the movies. They came in like a 4-pack. So I have all 4 Insidious movies before, and this was before the Red Door. But I had all 4 of the Insidious movies, and 3 wasn't hitting like that, even after multiple times watching. The Last Key 4 is not good pretty much at all. There were some interesting concepts regarding Lin Shaye's character, but outside of that, not a good movie. And then you get the Red Door, which I feel like was a pretty decent movie, but still at the end of the day, it's not going to be enough to bring this franchise back from the dead. So the franchise should have ended after 2. So 3 is where they essentially jumped the shark in the Insidious franchise. Now for the next franchise, it is Final Destination. We all know the original Final Destination is a very good movie, and it introduced something to us that we hadn't really seen before in horror, which is, the aspect of where a group of kids escape death, and then the whole rest of the movie is them continually trying to figure out how to cheat death and how to escape death. First movie is a banger. 2, in my opinion, and I would think the general consensus agrees with this, but Final Destination 2 is better than the first one. So they upped the ante going into part 2. So I'm like, okay, boom, like this franchise is really rolling. Then you have Final Destination 3. While it's not my favorite, it also does have one of the most iconic scenes in the Final Destination franchise, which is the tan in bed scene. And overall, it's not a bad movie whatsoever, but it's just not, it doesn't hold a candle to what the first and the second movie did. But then comes the Final Destination, which is the fourth one. And no, they definitely jumped here. Not that this movie is just pure horrible, but it's like, and let's just say, for instance, on a Final Destination scale, if the first one is like A minus, right? Then the second one is like an A plus. The third one is like probably like a B minus C plus, and then the fourth one is like a C minus D plus at best. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like where the franchise kind of started to start to go off the rails. I like Final Destination 5. It's not that bad, but still at the end of the day, they should have ended the franchise at 3. So it should have had those first 3 movies, which would have been perfectly fine, and that would have been a solid trilogy. The next franchise that I want to talk about is the Friday the 13th franchise. Now, the reason why I want to go ahead and jump into this franchise is because in honor of Friday the 13th coming up. So it's not this Friday, but it's the next Friday. I just wanted to go ahead and throw them in there. And for this franchise, it is really interesting because there are so many sequels, especially like that first 4, that were very good. So part 1 set the standard for what we were pretty much to expect when it comes to this franchise. In part 2, we get introduced to Jason as Sackhead Jason, and he was great in that role. Then you have part 3, still great. Part 4, still great. 5 is where, okay, we clearly all know it's not Jason, but where do they go from there? So you have a fake Jason in part 5, then part 6, you bring the real Jason back from the dead. While I don't necessarily think part 6 is just a great movie, it still is one of my favorites in that franchise. And it for sure belongs in like the top 5 of that franchise. So that's where it makes everything interesting, because it's like, does the franchise jump at 5? Because that's when they start switching everything up, and Jason was dead in the franchise. And you know, if you just have those 4 movies, it's probably one of the strongest franchises that there is. But you throw in 5, then 6. The problem that most people have with 6 is a lot of those there's like goofy music and goofy little scenes where it's just like, this isn't something that's characteristic of what we know in a Friday the 13th movie. Yeah, not our Friday the 13th movies just the most serious horror movies ever. No, they're not. But still, the point is like, when you start feeling like it's a completely different tone from what you're used to, then that's where you really run into a lot of problems. I would probably have to say that the franchise jumped at 5. And now every time I'm mentioning all these movies and these franchises and I'm talking about where they should have ended, that doesn't mean that, you know, other movies in the franchise weren't enjoyable. So I just want to make sure that that is clear and concise here. But there still is a shift. You can still always feel a shift in a franchise when you let's just say, for instance, you watch 1 and then you watch 2 and then you watch 3, and it's like 3, you know, typically part 3s are like, they have a lot of homages to your part 1s and stuff like that. But if your 3s and your 4s and stuff like that start feeling like, dang, is this the same franchise? Then then that's where it jumps. And lastly, the last horror franchise that I want to talk about is the Scream franchise. So when it comes to Scream, there's the iconic Scream from 1996. There's nothing much more to be said about that. With part 1, you have Billy and Stu, and then Scream 2 comes around, and you have a great intro scene, which is probably one of the most iconic in horror history, with Jada Pinkett Smith and Omar Epps. So that was really good. Then you have Mickey and Debbie Loomis as the killers in this movie. Then part 3 rolls around, and then you have Roman as a killer, and he's making it seem like he orchestrated everything from the beginning, or he was the mastermind behind the motivation of Billy and whatnot from the first movie to do all the kills and stuff like that. So I don't know about y'all, but that's where you really start to lose me. Now, the thing that sucks about it is because Scream 4 is, like, I think Scream 4 is better than Scream 2. That's the tough part about it, because you have 3 sitting there in the middle, and I don't really think 3 is that strong of a sequel and really that good of a movie. And then you give a reason like that for a killer in Roman, like, That really just blows me. Probably say the horror franchise jumped at 3. 4 is solid, 5 is alright, and 6 is alright. Like none of them are, like, I would say none of the movies in the Scream franchise are just absolutely like dog shit, but with part 3 being much lower in terms of quality in my opinion than, you know, 1, 2, 4, and I mean maybe 3 might be on par with 6 or something like that, but that's about it for that. So I'm gonna just say the Shark Jumper is at 3, but there still are some enjoyable movies in the remainder of that franchise. But that's all I got for y'all, Spooky Gang. Y'all let me know down below what are some of your favorite horror franchises, and of these horror franchises that I just mentioned, where do you think that those horror franchises should have ended? Y'all go ahead, subscribe to the kid. Road to 1K subs. We're gonna hit that goal. We just need everybody to keep this momentum going so we can start expanding the exposure all over YouTube. And I need YouTube to stop playing and start recommending these videos more, because I don't know what they be on. But yeah, like I said, y'all go ahead, comment, subscribe, share the channel with all of your horror friends. And also comment down below what are some of your favorite, you know, Halloween stores, and when do you put up Halloween decor, all that good stuff. We're at the beginning of September. We have 2 strong months of spooky season, so hey, the vibes are gonna be up. So until the next video, Spooky Gang, y'all stay blessed, and y'all already know the vibes. Y'all stay spooky.